Good day, this is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you on Reason to Resist from Montreal, Canada on October 27, 2024. In the early hours of Saturday, October 26, Israel's military attacked what it claimed to be military targets in Iran. Israel launched its first attack on Tehran after 2 a.m. local time on Saturday. 3 hours later, Israel's second wave hit Tehran as well as the provinces of Elam and Khuzestan. These provinces are in the east of Iran and border on Iraq. They are the Iranian provinces that are closest to Israel, and therefore attacking those provinces poses the fewest logistical challenges for Israel's military. At about 6 a.m. local time on Saturday, Israel said it had completed the strikes and, quote, achieved its objectives, close quote. An Israeli army spokesperson said the operation, which Israel's military dubbed Days of Reckoning, had attacked Iran's, quote, means of producing missiles, close quote, as well as missile systems and Iranian air defense capabilities. On Saturday night, Iranian state-run IRNA news agency reported that 4 men serving in Iran's military air defense units had been killed in the attacks. Not surprisingly, 2 starkly different narratives of Israel's attacks have emerged. Israel and its Western backers claim that Israel delivered a severe but precise blow to Iran's military-industrial complex. Iran, on the other hand, has belittled Israel's attack as largely ineffective, insisting that it inflicted only, quote, minor damage, close quote, on a few Iranian military bases. Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei added on Sunday that the Israeli attack on the country should neither be exaggerated nor downplayed. So, what is the truth about these attacks? At this stage, the public has been given too little information to say with certainty which account is closer to the reality. But based on available information, we can certainly make an educated guess. Before we look more closely at the information we have about the Israeli attack, let's compare what we know at this time to what we saw in the immediate aftermath of Iran's last attack on Israel, which occurred on October 1st. Within hours of Iran's October 1st missile attack on Israel, multiple videos appeared on social media which showed dozens of Iranian missiles striking land targets in Israel. The most dramatic footage came from the outskirts of the Nevatim Air Base, which houses Israel's prized F-35 warplanes. Those videos showed in the range of 20 strikes on that airbase alone. Israel later acknowledged, in fact, that Nevatim had indeed been struck, although it claimed that the damage to the airbase was modest. Now let's contrast that video evidence to what we have seen thus far in the case of Israel's strike on Iran. So far, no videos have emerged which show Israeli missiles striking any land-based targets in Iran. In fact, the available video footage, which was published by the BBC, appears to show Iranian air defense missiles exploding in the air over Tehran as Israeli projectiles hurtled toward their intended targets, whatever those targets may have been. Now, Iran's population is almost 10 times larger than that of Israel, about 91.8 million versus 9.4 million people in Israel. Moreover, we in the West are repeatedly told that much of Iran's population is hostile to the current Iranian government. In such circumstances, one would expect that if Israel had achieved the level of success it has claimed, we would see at least a few videos of land targets being struck in Iran. But so far, we've seen none. Now, before Iran and Israel exchanged missile attacks, Iran was already known to possess reasonably good air defense systems. Then, in August, after Israel assassinated Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, reports emerged that Russia was providing to Iran highly sophisticated electronic warfare equipment and Russian S-400 air defense systems. These are considered by many military experts to be the most advanced military missile defense systems in the world. Therefore, it would not be surprising if Iran succeeded in shooting down a large majority of Israel's missiles this weekend. Iran is also reputed to have hypersonic missiles, which no Western air defense system can repel effectively. Western militaries at this time do not have the capability to produce and employ hypersonic missiles. Therefore, it would not be surprising if Israel's air defense systems on October 1st failed to intercept most of Iran's incoming missiles. Hours after Israel's missile attack on Iran this weekend, retired U.S. Army Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson gave a speech in which he commented on Israel's attack. Wilkerson is the former chief of staff to Colin Powell when he was U.S. Secretary of State. And here's what Colonel Wilkerson had to say about the Israeli missile attack.
What was happening, according to people on the ground in Tehran and people on the ground in Jordan and in Israel, primarily Tel Aviv, and people reporting on it who have essentially the right attitude about journalism, was that Israel was being defeated. I don't know if it was Russian S-400s or whatever, but I was hearing that what they were doing was not having much impact. Yeah, a few bombs went off, a few things, a few fires and so forth, but nothing of significance. I was even watching a video furnished me by one person who was in Tehran of Iranians out in the street filming with their cell phones. And yet, as the morning went on and I picked up the U.S. news, I saw the usual propaganda, that the attack had come off, that great damage had been done, 100 Israeli planes went out. At the same time, I was picking up some good information from Al Jazeera and others about how badly the Israelis are doing in Lebanon. Frankly, they're getting their rear end handed to them. They're losing more people probably than the IDF at wartime in a tight period has ever lost.
Despite comments like those of Lawrence Wilkerson on the Israeli attacks this weekend, Western media outlets went into overdrive to support Israel's narrative that its attack had been a smashing success. The New York Times rushed out an article entitled, quote, "Israel struck air defenses around critical Iranian energy sites, officials say," close quote. According to the New York Times article, Israel's attacks on Iran destroyed air defense systems set up to protect several critical oil and petrochemical refineries, as well as systems guarding a large gas field and a major port in southern Iran. The article was ostensibly based on accounts from Israeli and Iranian officials. The New York Times stated, quote, "Israel's destruction of the air defense systems has raised deep alarm in Iran," the three Iranian officials said, "as critical energy and economic hubs are now vulnerable to future attacks if the cycle of retaliation between Iran and Israel continues," close quote. What are we to make of the New York Times claims? The New York Times stated that its sources were, quote, 3 Iranian officials and 3 senior Israeli defense officials, close quote, who are familiar with the attacks. The Times did not disclose the identities of any of these 6 sources. Moreover, whereas the Times described the Israeli sources as senior defense officials, it gave no information about its Iranian sources. Are they senior officials? Are they junior officials? Are they part of the Iranian military? Are they part of the civilian government? We simply do not know because the New York Times doesn't tell us. Therefore, we really have no way of assessing their credibility. Of course, the New York Times is also deeply hostile to Iran. And an obvious question, therefore, is why would Iranian officials run to the New York Times to tell them that Israel has caused deep alarm in Iran? The bottom line is this. When the Western corporate media make claims about the West's official enemies, we should not assume that those claims are true unless they are accompanied by credible, independent evidence. Unnamed Israeli and Iranian sources are not credible evidence, especially when we are told nothing about the Iranian sources other than that they are officials, whatever that means, and especially when we know for a fact that the New York Times has spread disinformation repeatedly on the basis of accounts provided to it by unnamed government officials. The New York Times, of course, was not the only Western corporate media outlet that rushed out a story to support Israel's claim of stunning success. On Sunday, the Associated Press and other Western media outlets published satellite photos purporting to show damage to certain Iranian military bases. The Associated Press article included 4 such images. The AP stated that the first 2 were from Iran's Parchin military base, and the second 2 were from its Kozhir military base. The satellite images came from a company called Planet Labs PBC. Planet Labs is a publicly traded corporation that is based in the United States. On its website, it touts its work with NASA. Now, I'm no expert in the analysis of satellite imagery, but it isn't obvious to me, for what that's worth, that any of the images published by the Associated Press show damage to either of those two Iranian military facilities. It's also notable that the AP article does not state that the Associated Press consulted with experts in the course of analyzing those satellite images. If it did consult with experts, AP certainly does not identify who those experts are, nor does it specify the nature of their expertise. Again, when it comes to corporate media reports about the West's official enemies, the prudent approach is not to assume that what they are telling you is true unless it's backed up by credible independent evidence, and AP provides none. Another predictable aspect of Western media reporting on Israel's attack on Iran this weekend is that they consistently describe Israel's attack as retaliatory, whereas they described Iran's October 1st strike on Israel as an aggression. At the time of the Iranian strike on October 1st, Western corporate media studiously avoided the fact that Israel had destroyed Iran's consulate in Damascus, Syria, on April 1st of this year. Under international law, this constituted a serious act of aggression against Iran. And of course, even before then, Israel was conducting a genocidal war on the Palestinian people in historic Palestine. Therefore, by any rational measure, Israel should be characterized as the aggressor in this conflict. Whatever the damage may be from this weekend's attack on Iran, it seems clear that at least a few of Israel's missiles struck one or more Iranian military bases. This, of course, raises a question, and it's the biggest question of all. What will Iran do now? On the one hand, the Israelis did not strike Iran's oil or nuclear facilities, which Iran's government had clearly stated to be a red line. On the other hand, the Israelis did kill 4 Iranian soldiers. And when Iran attacked Israel on October 1st, the Israelis reported that none of its soldiers were killed or wounded in that attack. It's therefore difficult to imagine that Iran will not respond in some manner to Israel's most recent aggression. On Sunday, Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, stated, quote, "They," meaning the Israelis, "need to understand the power, determination, and innovation of the Iranian nation and its youth. How to convey this power and resolve of the Iranian nation to the Zionist regime is for our officials to determine, and what is in the best interest of the nation and the country should be done." Close quote. What happens next is anyone's guess, but one thing remains clear. The surest way to avoid a further escalation and a full-blown war in West Asia is for Israel to stop its genocide on the Palestinian people. This is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Montreal, Canada on Reason to Resist on October 27, 2024.